Hello everyone, my name is Robin and I am the Tired Witch. Welcome to my channel. So today we are going to discuss Books of Shadows versus Grimoires. Do you need them? How do you start one? Is it important? So right off the bat, I would like to get started with this video by saying everyone should be keeping a magical journal, in my opinion. Even if you don't want to describe it as a Book of Shadows or as a grimoire. I'm sure somebody's going to correct how I say that. Welcome to a California accent.
Grimoire or grimoire.
Anyway, should you be keeping one? I believe so, absolutely. I think every single magical person should be keeping some form of a record of their journey through witchcraft or paganism, whatever description, of course, that you want to use there. When we consider things like the grand conversation of our journeys through witchcraft, it's important to have something that we can reflect back on to see our growth and, kind of where we've come from, where we've been, and how much our opinions and thoughts have changed magically throughout the years. Because realistically speaking, if you are considering witchcraft to be something that you really seriously want to get into, this isn't something that you'll be doing for 6 months, theoretically. This is something that is a lifelong practice, and your opinions will change throughout the years. The world will change throughout the years, where you live, etc. And because of these things, it's important to keep a record of your own personal growth. As well as when you do spell work, you can always refer back to it. What worked for you, what didn't work for you, and grow from there. So let's get started with Books of Shadows. A Book of Shadows is a witch's kind of diary, I guess you could call it. It is a record of religious texts, thoughts, journaling, spells you've done, important notations that you've made. If you've taken notes through books that you've been reading or YouTubes you've watched, podcasts, or even just lived experiences, a Book of Shadows is a really good place to jot that sort of information down. Now, I have some Books of Shadows that I've collected throughout the years. Even one from high school. If you're watching this, Stephanie, yes, it is one of my high school composition notebooks. Anybody who knows me in life knows that I went through a phase in high school where I kept everything in composition notebooks, from doodles to notes to Books of Shadows. I'm not going to be showing you the insides of these. They are very private and personal. But that being said, a Book of Shadows and a grimoire are very personal things. They're going to look different practitioner to practitioner. Now, because a Book of Shadows is something that is more fluid, in my opinion, you are going to go through probably a lot of them. This is the one I'm currently working on that I've just started quite recently, which is why we only have a few tabs here. Here's one that I filled up at the end of last year. It all develops, right? There are notes and things in there that are opinions that maybe I am not holding anymore in magic. And there are opinions that I've held since I had this book right here. It's all a part, I guess, of the development, isn't it? Now, a Book of Shadows is something that, like I said, you're going to have several of them. They are personal and private and your own. You can, of course, share them with people that you trust. I personally do not prefer to have anybody touching my Books of Shadows. My husband even knows to mind his beeswax. They are something that is going to keep information that you find and spells that you perform and text that is notable and to keep with you. The interesting thing, in my opinion, about a Book of Shadows versus a Grimoire is that when you do spell work, you can make notes in it about things that worked for you, didn't work for you, did the spell perform well, if it took a while to perform at all, how did that look? What would you change next time? I always try to keep about a page blank after I've done a spell, so that way I can do things like reflect back on it and write things and make adjustments that maybe I will try next time. Sometimes first spells just don't hit. So was it a miss? I write it down. If it was a miss, why do I think that might be? I might do some meditation or divination on that and write that sort of information down too. I also keep things in there like dreams. Sometimes we have dreams that are, they feel, at least in the moment, very pivotal. Speaking is hard. And because they feel very pivotal, why do I keep saying pivotal?
Pivotal.
Tenny's gonna have a field day with this one. Anyway, because they feel important, we're gonna say that instead. Because they feel important, it's good to just jot it down, and maybe if that importance comes back up to you in the future for you to, reflect on and take note of, you have that written down to reference back to. Now, a grimoire, unlike a Book of Shadows, is far more textual. It's like a textbook. We are writing down just simply things like spells and exactly how to perform them. We are writing information about things like, let's say, herbs or crystals, and just pure information. This is a reference book to go back to in the future to recreate spell work that you have previously done. My personal grimoire is actually currently packed up, because if you've seen my other videos, you would know that I am moving. However, I will put a little picture of it here. A grimoire is something that is more likely to be something that you will be sharing with others, as it does have things like just straight instruction in it. A grimoire is very sacred. Both a grimoire and a Book of Shadows should be something that you have protection and have a dedication to. So I'd like to explain that a little bit. While both of these are very sacred texts, books, I don't know why I said text. It is sacred text sometimes, but while they are very sacred books, there is sort of a practice here that you want to do, or that I do at least, because Book of Shadows and Grimoires are so personal, like we've talked about earlier in the video. You might not do it this way, but this is what I do. When I get a book, the first thing I do is I write and I address exactly whose book this is. That might say something like property of, or just simply the date I've started the Book of Shadows or Grimoire, who it belongs to, and possibly like a sigil, let's say. I've varied this throughout the years, because just like I talked about earlier with your practice growing, even just how you dedicate your book is going to change with your practice. So we're going to do very simple things here of always date what the dates are that cover it. So when we are starting our book, we are putting, let's say, today's date. Today actually is spring equinox, so we'll put March 20th, 2022, and then we'll put a little dash, and then when the book is finishing, we will put the end date on it. It's just important that way that when you are referencing back to it, you have some sort of gauge as to when this would have taken place for you in your practice and in your life, in case you need some clues as to why you were thinking the things that you were thinking, or the land you were working on at that time, because if you are making adjustments, it might have to change with your practice for where you're at, right? Then we're going to put a page dedicated to protection. Now, I always put something in there that is both a protection sigil that I have created specifically for that book, as well as a simple incantation that is the same, a spell, if you will, that is following the same energy. It is simply anybody who is trying to come into this space that is mine and potentially damage or harm that it is just a counter spell to them. Sorry, but protection magic is important. And if you fuck with me and you fuck with my shit, it will come right back at you. That's mean. But it's true. Protection magic is important. And then, because I am a devotee of Santa Muerte, I always put a dedication to her in it. Yes, it's a very simple one. It does change book to book, but it is something along the lines of her protecting me, protecting my book and my practice, and the love that I have for her. And then I anoint my books. Now, anointing is something that we do with oil. I know that magical spell oil is something that I have sold for years in my shop. It is something I just did a video recently on prosperity oil. It's a huge part of my practice. It's something I truly believe in and I really care about. So I always make a special oil that is surrounded around protection and devotion. Again, following the devotion of my specific patron saint. It would be different for you. But these two things I do to sort of bless my book, and I will draw that same protection sigil that I made for the book on the cover in oil, and I let it sit, and I let it sit on my altar for a week. That is what I personally do. Of course, you might not do it that way, and that is okay. Now, things like organizing both your Book of Shadows and your Grimoire are an incredibly important thing. For me personally, when it comes to my Book of Shadows, as you see, I use things like little flags, and at the very beginning of the book, I will put one of those flags there in order, saying where that would have come from. So, is it a spell? Let's say it's the blue tags are spells. Is it from a book I was maybe reading and taking notes on? I flag that and I put it all in so that way I can refer back to it. In a grimoire, which is a permanent, as we said, sort of textbook following of how to do spells or herbs, I always put an index in the front. I will just alphabetize with space to fill in later, and I give myself that room, which is usually about six to 8 pages that I'll put in the front, so that way I can fill it in later. Then I number all the pages at the bottom, so that way I can go to the front and say, I'm looking for that prosperity powder that I made before. Prosperity is clearly a theme here today. I don't know why, it's just on my brain. Okay, that's on page 74, and I can go right to it. Yes, you're going to have these sort of blank pages for a while in the front, but it's something I found really helpful and useful, and just kind of leaves out the room for issues in the future. So overall, this is how I do Book of Shadows and Grimoire. I hope that you found this helpful today, and I would love it if you left a comment below on how you do your Book of Shadows and if it differs from my practice. So do let me know, and I'm excited to hear. I hope you have a great day. Bye.